What a great way to just, right? And it's good because I'm about to give you a pop quiz. Pop quizzes, that used to drive fear deep inside. All right, it's not a pop quiz, okay? It's a questionnaire. I'm going to ask you to answer some questions, and you're going to score yourself on the spoken from a teacher up here, yeah. So you're going to score yourselves. If you want to write down your scores, you can. If you just want to remember your scores in your mind, because it's important where we're going with this. And I'll just tell you right now, it's about anxiety. Are you ready? So over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? Now you're going to score yourself, let's go to the first one. Feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge. So in the past 2 weeks, has that not at all been a part of your problem of your life? Several days in the last 2 weeks? More than half the days? Or nearly every day? Okay? So feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge, what score would you give yourself? Don't answer, just think about it. Or write it down. All right, number 2. Over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by not being able to stop or control worrying? There are 7 of these. Number 3, over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been worrying too much about different things? Keep adding your score. Number 4, over the past 2 weeks, how often have you had trouble relaxing? You could throw sleep in there, I guess. People are chuckling. I'm not sure what to make of that. Number 5, over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been so restless that it was hard to sit still? Now, this next one, you can't look at the person beside you. Over the past 2 weeks, how often have you become easily annoyed or irritable? Nervous laughter. And finally, over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by feeling afraid as if something awful might happen? All right, I don't want to know out loud, but add up your scores and how did you do? If you scored between 5 and 9, you are experiencing mild anxiety. If you scored 10 to 14, moderate anxiety. If you scored 15 to 21, our counselors will be in the lobby after the service. And I'm only half kidding, because if you scored 15 to 21, you're probably experiencing severe anxiety, and it probably warrants treatment. Now, the reason why I say this is I did not make up this questionnaire. This questionnaire came directly from an article that was posted 2 weeks ago in the New England Journal of Medicine. And it was an analysis of a disorder that is now called generalized anxiety disorder. And clearly, as what I understand the New England Journal of Medicine is about, it was published to help doctors get a better handle on what appears to be a growing problem in their practices and in the United States, and that is anxiety. Now, the article begins with this case study. A 46-year-old married woman presents with insomnia, headaches, muscle tension, and back pain. She describes a long-term pattern of worrying about several life situations, including health, finances, her job, and she notes increased anxiety associated with her teenagers leaving home to attend college. She drinks alcohol daily to reduce the tension and help her sleep. In reviewing her history, you note that she has visited your office many times over the past year because of physical symptoms. What do you advise? Now, that's a case study, but for many of us, I think it probably hits a little too close to home. For although you may not be clinically anxious, many of us, if not most of us, are facing a growing level of anxiety in our lives. You've heard me say this many times. I believe it to be true, that we are a people who are chronically anxious. We can't escape it. We are just anxious people. It's a national problem. Edwin Friedman wrote a book, one of my favorite books on leadership, called Failure of Nerve, and he at length describes the anxiety in our world this way. He says that we are dealing with the raging anxiety storms of our time, that chronic anxiety ricochets from sea to shining sea, and he says our neurosis has become nationalized. Now, neurosis is another word for mild mental illness. So what he's saying is we as a nation are mentally ill. And I agree. As a whole, anxiety, especially the kind of anxiety that I'm referring to, is a form of mental illness, and it has become nationalized. So the question I want to address, we are going to get to answers in a few moments, but I want to first ask the question, why? What lies behind our growing anxiety? I'm going to offer a few reasons. I cannot cover the waterfront on this, not all of it, but I want to cover a few things. And we'll start with an article that just came out last week in the New York Times. It was them reporting on the Pew Center study research on this subject. The title of the article is Stressed, Tired, Rushed, a Portrait of the Modern Family. Now, the finding of the Pew Research Center was this. It's something we've known for decades and decades, but now they're suggesting that a permanent shift has come over America, and it's this. We are now permanently a nation that's predominant two-parent, full-time working families. All right? Two parents working. And they in the survey, they suggest that public policy, workplace structure, and mores have not seemed to adjust to this new norm in which both parents work. They went on to say that people are having difficulty, people are having difficulty balancing it all. Working parents are saying they're feeling stressed, they're feeling tired, they're rushed, and they're short on quality time with their families and their passions. Here's a quote from Amy Barnes, 33 years old and a married mother of a toddler. You basically just always feel like you're doing a horrible job at everything. You're not spending as much time with your baby as you want. You're not doing the job you want to be doing at work, and you're not seeing your friends hardly ever. Doesn't even mention her husband. You feel horrible. Maybe he's like, a year later. You're doing a horrible job at everything. I think you resonate with that. I think we all do. There was a book that came out, I think it was last year, I'm not sure, by Greg McCown called Essentialism. I highly recommend the book to you, where Greg unpacks this even further. He suggests in an interview that what we are living is, in his words, quote, frenzied, frenetic nonsense. He goes on, and I've personalized his statements here through his book, describing you, okay? You're trying to do it all, McCown says. He says, you're making a millimeter of progress in a million directions. That's so descriptive. A millimeter of progress in a million different directions. He said, you're living by default and not by design. He said, you're making choices reactively. You're unable to distinguish the vital few from the trivial many. And you are engaged in the undisciplined pursuit of more. And the things you keep telling yourself is, I have to, it's all important, and you're trying to figure out how to fit it all in. Yeah, we're chronically anxious. So it's this work-life balance. That's the first thing, work-life balance. But let me go to a whole other area, and this may come as a surprise to you, but we are also struggling. Our anxiety is through what I'm calling status frenzy. All right, status. Now, status is how I am in relationship to everybody else. What's my status in regard to the people around me or the world? It's my self-perception. It's who I am, and it's eating us alive. Many people, especially young people, are addicted to status. And by the way, I'm about to talk about students, teenagers, but do not think this doesn't apply to you. We'll come back to you in a minute. So teenagers, listen up, because a few days ago on the podcast, This American Life, they examined this new status anxiety, especially among young girls. They interviewed 2 young girls who are freshmen in high school about this issue. And I got to tell you, parents, listen up. If you're the parents of a daughter especially, you better go back, call up This American Life, and listen to that podcast. It will freak you out, and it will also help you figure out how to love your girl. Because here's what the two girls said. Many, many young girls enter into this addiction of status through something like Instagram, for instance. Here's how it works. Again, it's from two girls. A girl posts a selfie on Instagram. You know what a selfie is? It's a picture. And then the girl waits. And as she's waiting, a complicated social dance, complete with its own language and unspoken social responsibilities, ensues. And the girl waits for the key phrases that every selfie posting girl needs to hear. She needs to get comments that say, "You are beautiful," or "You are gorgeous," or "You are hot," or something like that. Those are the key phrases. Or, oddly, "You're so pretty, I hate you." Or this one, "You're so pretty, I'm going to throw you on the train tracks." Apparently that's a compliment, but that's what the girl said. Now listen. These comments have to arrive within 10 minutes of the post. If they don't arrive within 10 minutes of the post, their status goes down in their eyes and in the eyes of their friends. And then everybody's paying attention, not just to the selfie, but what's critical are the comments. And these girls expect between 130 and 150 likes and dozens of comments, and there have to be comments on the comments. There's an unspoken social responsibility that you must do this, and then people check other people's comments to see who likes them, and what is constructed through one selfie is an elaborate social map that diagrams where everybody stands with everybody else in real time. One of the girls said, "This has become my job. It's like my job." She said, "I am a brand. And I have to stay," keyword, "relevant." And all this begins by 6th grade. Recently, an 18-year-old girl from Australia, Asina O'Neill, who was a goddess of Instagram, she kept posting pictures of herself. And she was an attractive young lady. But they were, some of them were suggestive, not suggestive as much as she was trying to have the beauty look, okay? And she posted recently, she said, "I'm done with all that." Now she's posting pictures of her normal, just who she is. And she keeps saying, "If you've seen all these pictures of me, that's because I starved myself for days before that picture, or I forced myself and held my breath for as long as I could to get the right pose. I had to take 35 pictures of that one selfie just to get it right." And she said, "I'm done with that." She described her addiction. She said it was like a snowballing addiction to be liked by others. Now, teen girls in the room, you get this. You know what I'm talking about. But the rest of you all need to pay attention. All of us, even us 60-year-old dudes, we all measure our lives against other people all the time. And we're stressed by it. To some extent, each one of us struggle with status anxiety. Look, you may not be posting selfies on Instagram, but when you post something on Facebook or on Twitter, you're waiting to see how many responses you get, how many likes you get, what kind of comments you get. We're all addicted to the nonsense of status anxiety. We all are. And if it isn't that, we're also, or all of us, especially parents of little ones, we're addicted to the status that our child is creating for us as through their achievements. They're little immortality symbols in our suburban life. This is my kid, and we judge our status by that. We also judge our status by how I look, my body type, how I come across to people, my job, my success in this world. It's not just work-life balance that gives us anxiety. It's this constant measurement against other people. Did I tell you that we're chronically anxious? I think I told you that, right? We are chronically anxious. We are freaked out all the time. All the time. Now, there's one other column. I'm going to put everything else under this other last column to describe where anxiety comes from. I'm just going to call it life happens, broken relationships, financial difficulties, health issues, past failures and disappointments that won't go away. Look, America has become so chronically anxious that our society has gone into emotional regression, Edwin Friedman suggests. Do you know what emotional regression means? That's a fancy term for saying we're becoming more immature. We're emotionally regressing, becoming more immature. You know that when you get into 30, 31, 32, 33 these days, it's still called adolescence? And you go, oh yeah, those kids just aren't growing up. Yeah, 40-something. You think you're a 30-something. And you 50-year-old and you 60-year-old, you want to live like you're 30, right? It's emotional regression. And I'm telling you, the reason why we're emotionally regressing is because we don't know what to do with this anxiety. We're overwhelmed by it. So, is there an answer? Well, that's why you're here today, right? You don't want me just to tell you how bad we are and let's all go home. Here's the good news. Christmas will help. That's good. Well, okay, Christmas not. What about comfort food? Shopping jags? Hot baths? Naps? Yes, go ahead, take one right now if you need it. I'm so freaked out. Mind if I just take a nap right now? Sleeping pills? Alcohol? Binge TV series watching? No, you need something more. Something deeper, something long-lasting, something that will permanently reshape the anxiety in your life. I want to show you that. Okay, I'm just going to go right to the answer. So grab a Bible and turn to Matthew chapter 11. Bibles are under the seat in front of you. Let me explain. Matthew chapter 11, it's on page 689. When you get there, and if you're unfamiliar with the Bible, maybe it's been a while since you've read, there are big numbers on the pages. Those would be the chapters, and the little numbers would be the verses. So page 689, and then look for chapter 11, verse 28. And I'll give you the context in a minute as you look it up. All right, here's the context. These are the words of Jesus. And he's uttering these words to the crowd in the middle of a particularly anxious day. Everybody's freaked out. And I'm going to explain why. Jesus, for months now, this is really at the height of his ministry, for months, has been going from city to city to city, and he's doing some teaching, of course, but he's also healing people. People who were lame or walking, people who were demon-possessed or delivered. I mean, it was an unbelievable amount of power and passion and miracles. And yet, you read between the lines of the story, and not everybody, the people are so full of anxiety, even in the middle of all this joy, they want more. Even John the Baptist's followers, John the Baptist was a cousin of Jesus, he sends his followers to Jesus to ask him this question: are you the one we've been waiting for? Now, it doesn't say this in the text, but I'm sure Jesus was saying, seriously, cuz? Seriously? You see the lame walking, you see the blind, they're seeing, the deaf are hearing, and you're asking if I'm the one? And then he goes off. You can read this in Matthew 11. He said, you know what? You're all like kids. You're all like children. You're like playing your flute and you want me to dance. What are you looking for? You want me to pull a rabbit out of my hat? Is that what you want me to do? So it was such a time of anxiety because the people were living under the thumb of Rome, and they were living under the thumb of their religious leaders. It was a time of high anxiety and people just demanding more and more and more and more. Jesus proclaims almost like a curse among the cities that just can't get enough. Look, he said, if I'd have done half the miracles in other cities, they would have believed, but you're not even believing. What is wrong with you? And then we get to this verse 25, and in the middle of anxiety, Jesus just stops. It doesn't say that he went alone by himself. He just launches into a prayer. I'm guessing that everyone's still standing around, and they're wondering, what is happening? And he starts to pray. You want to read it, you can. It's verse 25. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you've hidden these things from the wise and learned, and you were revealing them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure. And then he says, all things have been committed to me by you, by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. What's going on here? I have a feeling that Jesus is kind of stepping aside from the crazy making for a moment and saying, look, I know you, Father, and you know me, and we're good. You revealed this all to me. So it's like he's getting centered again in the presence of his Father in the middle of the crazy making. Meanwhile, I'm thinking everyone's standing there going, what is he talking to? No. They're waiting for the next words out of his mouth. These people are just craving something to bring answers to his life. And that's when he says, he stops his prayer. I think he looks him in the eye and he says this. I think, of course, it doesn't say this in the text, but reading between the lines, I think he got soft and maybe quiet and intense. And he says this, come to me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you, what's that next word? Rest. I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and I'm humble in heart, and you'll find, where's that word again? Rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy. Yeah, my burden is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So here's what he's saying. Not to be repetitive, but he's saying, you're weary. I know that. Weary here means you have worked so hard and you're overwhelmed and you're just crazy out of your mind. And he says, I also see that you're burdened. Now, burden, that's a word to describe a pack animal, like on a mule or something. He says, you are not only weary and busy, but you're burdened. So can I offer you rest? Can I offer you the opportunity to back away from the anxiety? I want to provide for you rest. And he tells him how he's going to do it. They're more than suggestions. They're not commands. They're offers, okay? If you want to find the rest in the middle of your craziness, he said, first of all, you need to come to me. Now, that word literally means come hither. In other words, you are there, you come here. Come to me. Now, remember, he's speaking to a group of people, so he's actually saying, physically, I want you to come to me because you see my disciples, Peter, John, Mary, the ones that are following after me. I want you to do what they've done. They have come to me. Now, let's, again, read between the lines a little bit. When he says come to me, that means that they have to stop the direction they're going in and change the direction they're going in with their life and come to him. Now, there is a long theological word that describes this process of changing the direction you're going in and coming to Jesus. And the word is repentance. All right? So what he's saying is you need to repent of or change. You are carving a path in life that is actually giving you anxiety. And I want you to turn and come to me. Repent of the direction you're moving in. Now, another thing that this implies, not just repentance, but he's saying, if you're going to come to me, you must entrust yourself to me. And here's the big word, the key word, surrender yourself to me. You're going to have to entrust yourself, surrender yourself to me, repent of the direction, come to me. If you want rest, I'm not going to give it by magic, not some kind of mojo that's going to come over you. You have to come to me and you will find rest. And then there's a second thing he says. Don't just come to me. He says, take my yoke upon you. Now, this is kind of a yoke. Maybe not exactly what he was referring to, but the kind of yoke he was referring to was probably something wooden like this, and it was a human yoke. There are two kinds of yokes. There are animal yokes, and basically to get jobs done. When I was in India a couple of weeks ago, I saw in the middle of a downtown street, I couldn't figure out why, well, the cars were always backed up all the time. But as we drove down the street, I realized one of the reasons is because there was an oxen with a yoke around its neck pulling a big cart, right? That's what animal yokes do. Sometimes they're double yokes, like they're two oxen and pulling. Then there are human yokes, and I think that's what Jesus was talking about. Human yoke, you've probably seen pictures of people who have these yokes. They lay on their shoulders, and then chains attached to both sides or ropes, and they go down to buckets, and they carry water, or they carry some sort of... Basically, the human yoke is designed to take the weight and distribute it across the shoulder. And so, all right, why does Jesus talk about yokes? He says, you need to take, and the word take means lift up. You need to hoist onto your shoulders my yoke. Now, there's something implicit in this suggestion, offer. What's implicit is you already have a yoke. You are rocking a yoke already. You are carrying let's face it, half our anxiety is caused by the yoke we're carrying. Because you and I are carrying water every day. And we got this yoke on our shoulders. We're carrying the water of work. We're carrying the water of the responsibility of our families. We're trying to distribute the weight in our lives, but sometimes the yoke that we're carrying is more than we can bear, and we can't carry it anymore. And the anxiety is getting worse, and we're getting burdened. And here's what Jesus says. He doesn't say, "Come to me and remove your yoke." He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, "Come to me and I'm going to get rid of your yoke." What does he say? "Come to me and take my yoke." Now that doesn't sound fair. That doesn't sound fair for Jesus to say, "Look, I know your life is hard, but I'm going to make it harder." That's not what he means. He means you've got to remove the yoke that you're now carrying, and I want you to carry my yoke instead. Now, let's get clear about the people he was talking to. They carried a yoke. They carried the water of their lives on their responsibilities, whether they're shopkeepers or whether they're shepherds or whether they're farmers. They had water to carry every day, responsibilities. They also had families to raise. They had social responsibilities. But they were also under the yoke of the Roman Empire, and they were also under the yoke of the religious leaders who were laying all kinds of laws on him. And you can read between the lines, Jesus saying, "Take off those yokes and take on my yoke. Take my lead. Come to me and follow my lead. Take my yoke, and you'll find rest for your souls." Now, let's get really practical here. If you take the yoke of Jesus, what does that actually mean? How does that give you rest? If you submit yourself to his authority in your life, how does that lead to rest? How does that not lead to more responsibility? Well, listen, first of all, if you surrender your life to Jesus Christ and you take his yoke, the very first thing that's going to happen to you is you are forgiven from the entire past. Because he's taken care of that by dying on the cross for you. So when you surrender your life to him, everything from your past, and we haven't even talked about the guilt that is weighing you down and causing you anxiety. There is absolutely no reason why you have to carry that anymore, because when you take on the yoke of Jesus and surrender him, you are forgiven. Guilt is gone. My friend, it is time. You are so full of anxiety about your past, and you hate who you are. You hate your past. Let it go. Put it down. Surrender your life to Jesus Christ, and you will find a lightness and freedom you haven't had in a long, long time. Okay, so it sounds hard taking on his yoke, but his yoke starts with forgiveness. You carry the yoke of Jesus, you're forgiven. Guilt and sin have been forgiven. Number two, you take on the yoke of Jesus, and he does the most remarkable thing. He enters into your life. From that point on, when you surrender to leave your life to Jesus Christ, you have his presence within you so that carrying anything is easier. Because you now have your own personal counselor within you. And I'm not making that up. That's what Jesus said. He will become your counselor and live within you. So when you carry the yoke of Jesus Christ, not only are you forgiven from the past, but you have his present reality. And finally, when you take on the yoke of Jesus Christ and you start to learn from him, he starts changing your priorities. All right? And actually, Greg McCown needs to study the life of Jesus Christ, because I don't think anybody lived an essential life more than Jesus did. You want to live an essential life, study the life of Jesus Christ, and he'll redirect your priorities of your life. So that's why I'm saying you take on the yoke of Jesus Christ, you come to him and surrender forgiveness, his presence, and new priorities. That's what makes his yoke easy. Because he's gentle and he's humble, he's not demanding. So let me wrap this up. I'm going to get like insanely practical. I'm going to tell you 2 things that I think you should do right now. Okay? 2 things you need to have. I don't know whether this has resonated with you. I hope this has resonated with you. I hope you're like okay, you got me. I'll do it. Then you need to right now have a surrender moment. Not tomorrow, not tonight, not when you get around to it, not a month from now. Right now, at this moment, surrender your life to Jesus Christ. How do I do that? How do I do that? Just tell Him, I surrender my life to you. I give you my life. I come to you, Jesus. I surrender my life to you right now. Not tomorrow, right now. Go ahead. Tell Him. Now, if you've done that, here's the second thing I'm going to ask you to do. After you've had this surrender moment, I want you to have a conversation with someone about it. With who? Well, let's start with the person in your life that you have a pretty sneaking suspicion already has done this. Maybe you came to church with them today. Maybe they're in your life. Maybe they're a family member. I want you to contact them sometime today and say, look, have you ever surrendered your life to Jesus? Because I think you have. Can I talk with you about it? Because I did that today in church. Can you help me with what my next... And if you're looking at me saying, well, I don't know anybody like that. You know what? We're here all day long, all week long. Come in and sit down, and we'll pray with you and process it with you. I'm asking you to have a conversation, because I don't want this just to die right here. Have a surrender moment, and then have a conversation. Because let me wrap this up. I mean, aren't you tired of the anxiety? Aren't you tired of it? I am. How about we come to Him, all of us who are weary and burdened, and He'll give us rest. We take His yoke upon us and learn from Him. He is gentle and meek in heart. And when you do that, that's when you find rest for your souls. Now, we're going to wrap this up. The wind ensemble is going to come out and play for us one last time. We're going to light some candles, and we're going to change the atmosphere in here for a little bit. And as we do, this is a great opportunity for you to have your surrender moment.